Thank you.
Education Secretary Michael Gove has spent the day doing sums, trying to explain why only 153 schools have currently signed up to his Academies programme, facilitated by a supercharged piece of legislation this week, when he predicted over 1,000 would have done so. The news that they haven't been queuing up to change their status, so far at least, will be a tonic to some Lib Dems. This programme has learnt they're planning to debate a motion at their party conference in September, warning about the dangers of free schools and academies. Here's our political editor, Michael Crick.
The Conservatives' plans to give many schools more independence from local councils and also to allow parents to set up new free schools as they choose was a big feature of David Cameron's election campaign, as on this trip to West Yorkshire. Many Tory councillors weren't that happy with the ideas, and now we know the coalition faces a major defeat on this centrepiece policy at this September's Lib Dem conference. The man who drafted the critical motion is this Lib Dem councillor from Huntingdon, Peter Downs, a retired head who was once president of the Secondary Heads Association. Newsnight's learnt his resolution has been scheduled for what could now be the most controversial debate at the Lib Dem conference in Liverpool.
Michael Gove said he wants to change education irreversibly, and that is a pretty serious statement, and I just hope that we can prevent it being irreversible. I understand perfectly why we had to go into coalition, but I think that going into coalition doesn't require you to abandon everything that you've ever stood for. And the purpose of this motion is to give everybody a chance to discuss this frankly and positively, and to reassert our commitment to good local schools for all pupils in equity and fairness.
The resolution from Huntingdon Liberal Democrats says local authorities should retain strategic oversight of school places, and it says local councils should continue to exercise their arm's-length support for all state schools. That would be bad news for Michael Gove, who's made it clear he wants to reduce the role of local councils in schools. And on Mr Gove's much-cherished free schools, the motion calls on all Liberal Democrats to urge people not to take up this option. The Huntingdon motion lists 7 reasons why Liberal Democrats should have nothing to do with Michael Gove's free schools. These include greater complexity, the inefficient use of resources, it's said, by creating surplus places in the school system, social divisiveness, it says, and also the risk to children with special needs.
I don't think they're a good idea at all. In fact, I think they're potentially disastrous. If they're taken up, and I'm not sure they're going to be necessarily taken up as much as he would like to see. But if they are, I think it would be bad news for education in this country. It would profoundly destabilise it and could lead to a drop in standards rather than the improvement in standards that he claims he wants to see.
Councillors and teachers are well represented amongst the activists at Lib Dem conferences. And Peter Downs' motion could also become a rallying point for Lib Dems who want to assert their party's independence. So, the motion could well go through.
I'm sure it will. I hope it will. It's a good party policy. It's one that we stood for and passed the year before, and nothing has changed. We are still Liberal Democrats. We still have our policy priorities, but we also recognise the responsibility that we face along with the Conservatives of helping us to get out of this financial mess. When we've done that, we can then start parting our ways. We're 2 separate parties with our own identities, and we will put before the electorate our own vision, and they will be 2 separate visions for the Britain of the future.
It was set out in the deal that brought David Cameron and Nick Clegg together in May that the Lib Dems would accept Michael Gove's long-cherished plans for free schools on the so-called Swedish model. Lib Dems must now grow up, honour that deal and accept these Tory schools policies, says a member of the free market think tank Liberal Vision.
I think it's time for certain Liberal Democrats to understand that in government you have to be a little bit more responsible with what you do. It's understandable, we've been shouting from the sidelines for an awful long time, but when you're in government there is a question of compromise, and really we should be, and we are pushing our own policies and we are getting them through, and it's perfectly reasonable that we take on the Conservatives in areas where there are sort of more extreme Conservative ideas. But really, we have to understand this is a core policy of the coalition, and one where both the Conservatives and the Liberal Democrats have had input, and we need to support it.
The Lib Dem minister in the Education Department, Sarah Tether, one of Michael Gove's deputies, was too busy to talk to Newsnight today, her office said. A damning motion at her party's conference won't change probably what she or other ministers do, but it could expose big problems within the policies and politics of the coalition government.